Excuse me, I think you're in the wrong cabin, sweetheart. The voice carried across the first-class section of Continental Coast Flight 812 like a slap dressed up in honey. Vivian Marchetti stood in the aisle beside seat 2, her blood-red manicured hand resting on the headrest, her head tilted with the practiced sympathy of someone who had said this exact sentence many times before. Her uniform was tailored one notch tighter than regulation, hugging a body she was rumored among the crew to maintain through 6 a.m. Pilates and very expensive tailors. Her platinum blonde hair was twisted into a severe knot that sharpened every angle of her face. Her green eyes were already cold. In seat 2, sat a black woman in a charcoal cashmere sweater. Her dark jeans were tucked into simple leather flats. A single black pearl rested in each earlobe. She did not look up. She turned the page of her magazine. "Ma'am," Vivian said louder this time, the honey draining out of her voice and leaving only the slap. "Did you hear me? I said you're in the wrong cabin." The woman in 2A turned another page. At 47, Amara Beaumont possessed the kind of stillness most people mistake for fragility. They were always wrong. Her face was composed in the way faces are composed after a lifetime of being watched too closely. Her hands were steady. Her breath was even. She had heard Vivian Marchetti the first time, the second time, and she would have heard her the third time too. She was simply choosing what to do with the words. In seat 3C, Bradford Whitmore lowered his newspaper. He was 54, broad-shouldered, his Ralph Lauren polo stretched across a chest that still remembered college rowing. His Tag Heuer watch caught the light. His smirk was already in place. Some people, Bradford murmured to no one in particular, just have no concept of where they belong. Across the aisle in 2D, Camille Holloway adjusted her sunglasses indoors and arched a perfect brow. Her cream Chanel suit was the kind of cream that cost a mortgage payment. Her pearls were the kind of pearls that came with a name. She leaned toward her husband, a tech investor whose name had been in the financial section 3 weeks ago, and said in a stage whisper, "Vivian, sweetheart, just move her along. Some of us are trying to enjoy the cabin." Amara turned another page. The ambient hum of the cabin seemed to thin. Other passengers, sensing the shift in the air, turned their heads slowly. A woman in row 5 paused with her phone halfway to her ear. A man in row 4 set down his bourbon. The first-class galley curtain rustled as a junior flight attendant peered out and immediately pulled back. Vivian Marchetti did not know it yet. She did not know that the woman calmly turning the page of her magazine owned 74% of the airline she was about to weaponize. She did not know that in exactly 47 minutes Captain Donald Pritchard would never command another flight. The entire crew of Flight 812 would be terminated mid-air, and the aircraft she had been told to prep for departure would be grounded so completely that not even the cleaning crew would be allowed back on board. She did not know that in 90 days, a retired flight attendant in Sarasota would mail a box that would reopen 22 years of buried complaints. She did not know any of this. She was about to find out. Vivian leaned closer. Her perfume, heavy, expensive, designed for boardrooms and not airplanes, filled the space around 2A. Her smile sharpened. "Honey," she said, soft and slow, "I'm going to ask you one more time, and then I'm going to call security." Amara closed her magazine. She set it gently on her lap, and for the first time she lifted her eyes. The cabin held its breath. "I'm sorry," Amara said, her voice low and even. "Did you mean to speak to me or to the seat?" Vivian blinked. The question was small, it was almost polite, but it landed in the cabin like a key turning in a lock. Before the story unfolds, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. We love seeing this community grow from every corner of the country and beyond. And if you've ever felt that quiet fury when someone decided what you were worth before you even said a word, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what is about to happen on Flight 812 is the kind of story that does not end with an apology. It ends with an entire airline on its knees. Now, let me take you back to the moment. A woman boarded a plane and decided that the simplest answer to a long history of being told to move was to refuse to move ever again. Amara Beaumont had boarded Continental Coast Flight 812 23 minutes earlier. She walked alone the way she always walked alone. She carried a single leather tote and a worn copy of The Atlantic that she had been meaning to finish for 3 weeks. She wore no logos, no designer labels, no jewelry beyond the 2 black pearls she had worn every working day for a decade. She had given the gate agent her boarding pass with a quiet smile, and the gate agent had scanned it without a second look. And that was Amara, thought the last simple moment of her morning. She was on her way from JFK to San Francisco for a private meeting where she would sign off on the acquisition of a regional carrier. The deal was $3.8 billion. The papers were already drafted. Beaumont Holdings did not announce these things in advance. They never had. That was Amara's rule. 3 times a year, Amara flew commercial on her own airline unannounced, dressed exactly the way she dressed today. She called it ground truth. Her chief of staff, Naomi Brooks, coordinated each test from Manhattan. The flights were always different. The crews were never warned. The point was simple. The point was to find out who Continental Coast really was when no one was watching. This morning she was finding out. In Seat 2, B. Sienna Park glanced up from her constitutional law textbook. 26 years old, second year at NYU Law, half Hispanic and half Korean. She had nodded at Amara when she sat down. A polite nod, a small smile, then back to her case briefs. Sienna had spent enough late nights scrolling social media to know what the prelude to a viral incident sounded like. She knew the moment the words "wrong cabin" left Vivian's mouth. Her phone was already in her hand. In row 3, Theo Castellanos was watching too. 33 journalist for a digital news outlet headed to a tech conference in San Francisco. Hispanic Slim perpetually rumpled. He had recognized something in Amara when she boarded but could not place her face. Now watching Vivian lean into Amara's space, Theo opened his notes app and began to type. Vivian had walked past Amara's row twice during boarding. Each time she had made deliberate eye contact, a silent invitation for Amara to explain herself, to apologize for taking up space she had not earned. Amara had not explained. Amara had not apologized. Amara had turned a page. Now Vivian stood in the aisle. The first words she had spoken to Amara were an accusation. "Did you hear me?" Vivian said again, her voice climbing now. "I said, this is the wrong cabin for you." "I heard you," Amara said. Her hand stayed folded in her lap. "I asked you a question. Did you mean to speak to me or to the seat?" A passenger in row 4 laughed. A short, nervous laugh. The kind of laugh that escapes before the body knows it should not. Vivian's smile tightened. "Ma'am, I need to see your boarding pass. You scanned it 12 minutes ago. I need to see it again." "Why?" Vivian paused. The cabin was watching her now. She could feel it. Sienna's phone was angled in her direction. Theo's eyes had not left her face. Brett Donovan, the junior attendant, was standing in the galley with his mouth slightly open. "Because Vivian said the honey gone? Now we have had issues with passengers wandering into premium cabins, and I would like to verify that you are in the correct one." Amara reached into her tote without breaking eye contact. She produced the boarding pass. She held it out between 2 fingers. She did not let go when Vivian tried to take it. "Read it out loud," Amara said softly. Vivian stared at her. "Excuse me. Read it out loud, so everyone can hear what you are about to question." The cabin went very still. Vivian's hand trembled just slightly as she pulled the pass free. "Continental Coast Flight 812. Vivian read her voice flat. "Beaumont. A. Seat 2. A. Boarding Group 1. She did not read the gold-embossed line at the top. The line that said, "Chairman's Circle." The line that should have ended the entire conversation. Amara watched her skip it. Amara said nothing. Well, Vivian said, holding the pass up to the cabin light as if she were appraising a forgery. This appears to be flagged in our system. Flagged how? That's not something I'm at liberty to discuss with you. I'm asking, and I'm telling you, Vivian said sharper now, that this pass has been flagged, and I am going to need you to step into the jet bridge while we sort it out. Amara's hands stayed folded. I'm not going anywhere. Ma'am, you scanned that pass when I boarded. You scanned it without comment. You walked past me twice during boarding without comment. You are now telling me 23 minutes after I sat down that there is a problem with my pass that you cannot describe and cannot prove. I'd like you to think very carefully about the next words you say. Bradford Whitmore in 3C leaned forward. He set his newspaper aside completely now. His smirk had hardened into something uglier. You know how I can tell she doesn't belong up here? Bradford said, loud enough for the entire cabin to hear, loud enough that he had to mean for them to hear. Because real first-class passengers don't have to argue. They've already won. Sienna Park's phone caught every syllable. Her live stream had been running for 90 seconds. She had 74 viewers. She watched the count tick to 120 in real time. Camille Holloway laughed, a single sharp laugh. She raised her champagne flute toward Bradford in a tiny mocking toast. Hear, hear. Vivian, emboldened, planted her feet. Ma'am, this is happening either with your cooperation or without it. The aircraft is on a tight schedule. I am the lead attendant on this flight, and I am telling you that you need to gather your belongings and step into the jet bridge. I'd like to speak to your supervisor. My supervisor is not going to override my judgment. Then I'd like to speak to her anyway. Vivian's jaw tightened. She turned toward the galley. Brett, get Maria up here. Brett Donovan hesitated. 29 3 years on the job, the kind of attendant who had never quite figured out where the line was between following orders and following his conscience. He looked at Vivian. He looked at Amara. He looked at the floor. Brett Vivian snapped. Did you hear me? Yes, he said. He did not move. Then go. He went, but slowly. Amara watched him go. Her face revealed nothing, but somewhere behind her composed eyes a small note was being made. The boy hesitated. That mattered. That would matter later. In the meantime, Vivian said, turning back to Amara, you can either step into the jet bridge or I can have you removed by the captain. Those are your options. My option, Amara said quietly, is to remain in the seat I paid for. Ma'am, you have called me sweetheart, honey, and ma'am in the last 4 minutes. You have not once called me by name. The name is on the pass you're holding. You read part of it out loud. Try the rest. That's not relevant. It will be. Camille Holloway leaned across the aisle. Her perfume was lighter than Vivian's, but somehow more cloying. Vivian, sweetheart, can we just move her? I have a meeting at 2, and I would really, really love to enjoy my flight. Working on it, Mrs. Holloway. Vivian, darling. You called her ma'am. Why don't you call her what she actually is, Camille? Her husband beside her finally spoke. A low warning. What I'm just saying, what everyone's thinking. Amara turned her head slowly, deliberately, to look at Camille for the first time. She held the gaze. She did not blink. She did not speak. She let the silence do what silence does to people who have just said something they cannot take back. Camille's smile faltered. Anyway, Camille said, and turned to face the window. Sienna's stream was at 300 viewers now. The comments scrolled by faster than she could read. This is wild. Who is the woman in 2A? Why won't they leave her alone? Vivian is going to lose her job. I hope they all lose their jobs. Theo Castellanos texted his editor. Story incoming. Continental Coast Flight 812. Get legal on standby. This is going to be big. His editor texted back inside of 30 seconds. Stay on it. Keep your head down. Don't get involved. Just record. Theo locked his phone. He kept watching. Vivian radioed the cockpit. Her voice was crisp now, performative, the voice of someone who knew the recording would be reviewed later. "Captain, this is Vivian in first class. I have a passenger in 2A refusing to comply with crew instructions. Pass appears flagged in the system. Recommending gate hold and possible removal. Over." The captain's voice crackled back. "Copy." Holding the door. "Maria's on her way, copy that." The cabin door, which had been halfway closed, paused. Amara watched the door pause. She watched Vivian's tablet glow with a new notification. She watched Brett walk back up the aisle slower than he had walked down it with Maria Velasquez in tow. She watched all of this with the expression of a woman who had seen this exact movie too many times and already knew how it ended. She slid her hand into her tote. Her thumb rested on the face of her phone. She did not press it. Not yet. Vivian turned to Bradford Whitmore. "Sir, I apologize for the delay. We're handling it as quickly as we can." "No apology necessary," Bradford said, grandly, leaning back. "I've watched this play out before. People think they can buy their way into a seat that wasn't built for them. The system always catches up eventually. Mr. Whitmore?" Amara's voice was so quiet it should not have carried. It carried. "Your firm has a $400 million credit facility with a subsidiary I happen to own. I'd suggest you consider that before your next sentence." Bradford laughed. "Oh, sweetheart, you don't know who I am." "I know exactly who you are. Whitmore Capital Partners, 3 offices. Recent earnings down 9% year over year. You presented at the Aspen Forum 2 months ago. Your closing slide misspelled the word fiduciary." The cabin went still in a different way now. Bradford's smirk faltered for the first time. "How do you should also know." Amara continued, her voice as calm as it had been when she first looked up, "that the credit facility in question is up for review next quarter. I sit on the board that decides whether it gets renewed." Bradford's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at his newspaper. He pretended to read. Sienna's stream hit 500 viewers. "What is going on here?" Maria Velasquez had arrived. 52. Hispanic. 3 decades of wearing a uniform that no longer fit because her shoulders had broadened from carrying every difficult passenger she had ever calmed. Her eyes were tired but kind. They landed on Amara first. Not Vivian. Not Bradford. "Amara," Ma'am Maria said, and the word was different in her mouth, almost gentle. "Can I help you? I'd like you to ask Ms. Marchetti why she is removing me from a seat I paid for on a flight I boarded properly with a pass that was scanned without incident 23 minutes ago." Maria turned to Vivian. "Vivian, walk me through it." Vivian launched into a clipped, rehearsed explanation. Pass flagged. Passenger uncooperative. Cabin disturbance, possible safety concern. Captain notified, recommending removal. Maria listened. Her expression did not change. When Vivian was finished, Maria looked at the boarding pass in Vivian's hand for a long moment. Then she looked at Amara. Then she looked at the boarding pass again. Her face did something complicated. Vivian Maria said slowly, "Step away from the row. Now." "What, Maria?" "I step away from the row. Vivian." Vivian did not step away from the row. Her grip on the pass tightened. The cabin door, which had been paused, began to close. Amara's thumb pressed her phone screen. Once. 47 floors above the streets of Manhattan, in an office Vivian Marchetti would never see a phone began to ring. Naomi Brooks picked up before the first ring finished. "It's happening." Amara said the words barely above a breath. Naomi did not ask which flight. She did not ask which crew. She had been waiting for this call for 6 months. She had a folder on her desk labeled simply 812. Inside the folder were preliminary legal drafts, board contact protocols, and a single sheet of paper titled Audit 7. Activating Audit 7, Naomi said. Timestamp, 9:43 Eastern, Continental Coast, 812. Lead Attendant Vivian Marchetti. Captain Donald Pritchard. Refusal to verify boarding pass after scan-in. Possible profiling. Bystander villains in 3C and 2D. Confirmed. Patching in Carla and the legal team. Hold the legal team. I want to give the captain one chance. Understood. Amara ended the call. Her thumb returned to her lap. She had not moved more than her thumb in the last 2 minutes. The cockpit door opened. Captain Donald Pritchard emerged. 61, silver-haired, the kind of pilot who had earned his wings in an era when the cockpit was almost entirely white and male and had not noticed that the era had ended. His uniform was crisp. His tie was perfect. His face was the face of a man who was very, very irritated by a delay. He did not look at Vivian. He did not look at Maria. He looked at Amara. Ma'am Pritchard said what seems to be the problem. Ms. Marchetti is the problem. I'd like her removed from this row. He stared at her. He blinked twice. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step off this aircraft. Sienna Park inhaled sharply. Did you hear that she whispered into her phone? He didn't even ask her side. He didn't ask Maria what was going on. He just told the black woman to leave. The stream count jumped to 1,200. Captain Amara said, I'd like you to consider very carefully the decision you are about to make. I am willing to give you exactly one chance to make it correctly. Pritchard's mouth tightened. He was a man who had not been given chances in a very long time. He was a man who gave chances. The reversal was almost physical to him. He found his footing in the only way he knew how. He doubled down. Ma'am, this is not a negotiation. Either you cooperate or we will have you removed. Camille Holloway clapped, quietly, mockingly, finally. Bradford Whitmore did not look up from his newspaper. He had finally understood that something had shifted, and he was now pretending very hard that he had never been part of it. Amara lowered her gaze back to her magazine. She did not turn the page. She just looked at it. You have until that cabin door reopens to reconsider, Captain. After that, this stops being your decision. Ma'am, 9:45 Eastern. The clock is running. Pritchard turned to Vivian. Get her belongings. Have ground crew meet me at the door. Yes, Captain. Brett Donovan, watching from 3 feet away, said quietly, Are we sure about this? She seems Brett. Vivian's voice cut him in half. Stay in your lane. Brett looked at his shoes again. But this time, Maria Velasquez was watching him. And Maria Velasquez had been doing this job for 30 years. And Maria Velasquez was beginning to understand that something was very wrong with this picture, and she did not yet know what. But the something was the kind of something that ended careers. She turned to Pritchard. Captain, may I see the pass? Vivian tightened her grip on the boarding pass. Maria, I've already verified. May I see the pass? Vivian. Vivian handed it over, slowly. Maria looked at it. Her eyes scanned the printed lines. Her eyes scanned the gold-embossed line at the top, the line that said, Chairman's Circle, the line Vivian had skipped when she read it aloud. Maria's face did something else now, something that was not a smile and was not fear, but was very close to both at once. Captain Maria said carefully, I think we need to step into the galley for a moment. There's nothing to discuss, Maria. Captain, Maria, I'm not going to relitigate this in front of the cabin. The passenger is being removed. Maria's hand tightened on the pass. She opened her mouth. She closed it. She handed the pass back to Vivian. She stepped aside. Sienna's stream caught the moment. The comments exploded. Maria knows. Maria knows something. Why isn't she saying it? Tell him, Maria. Maria did not tell him. Maria had been told by 30 years of being a woman of color in this industry that telling captains things was not how she had survived to 52. Telling captains things was how flight attendants ended up reassigned to red eyes for 2 years. Amara watched Maria step aside. She did not blame her, but she filed it away. Sienna Park had now begun reading the comments aloud. Her voice was hushed urgent, the voice of a sportscaster narrating a slow-motion disaster. Y'all, the comments are saying, wait. Someone in the chat is saying, that's Amara Beaumont. Beaumont Holdings. They own Continental Coast Airlines. Heads in the cabin began to turn. Multiple people are saying it now. Amara Beaumont. Forbes 100. Beaumont Holdings owns the airline. Bradford Whitmore froze. The newspaper trembled in his hands. He had pitched Beaumont Holdings as a target acquisition in his last 3 investor decks. He had name-dropped Amara Beaumont at a Hamptons charity gala in August. He had gotten her name wrong. He had called her Andrea at the time. He looked very slowly at the woman in 2A. The blood drained from his face. Camille Holloway, who did not yet know, was still smirking. Honestly, this is taking forever. Camille, her husband again, stronger this time. Stop talking. What? Stop talking. Pritchard had not heard Sienna's narration. He was too far up the aisle, too occupied with the choreography of removal, too convinced of the rightness of his course. He turned back to Amara. Ma'am, ground crew is on the way. Please gather your belongings. Amara did not gather her belongings. Vivian, sensing the captain's authority slipping, decided to escalate. She reached down toward Amara's tote. Don't. The word was Amara's. It was not loud. It was not shouted, but it cut through the cabin like a wire pulled taut. Vivian's hand froze 3 inches from the tote. Ms. Marchetti, if you place a hand on my belongings, I will have you arrested before this aircraft leaves the gate. That is not a threat. That is a description of what will happen. Do you understand me? Vivian's hand stayed frozen. Do you understand me? Yes, Vivian whispered. Then take your hand back. Slowly. Vivian took her hand back. Slowly. Sienna's stream hit 4,000 viewers. The hashtag began to assemble itself in real time. Comments were flying so fast they blurred. Tell them who you are. Tell them. Tell them. But Amara did not tell them. Not yet. The channel formula had taught her, though she did not know it was a formula, that the most powerful reveal is the one someone else makes for you. That reveal was about to come. From row 5, Dr. Reginald Carver cleared his throat. He was 68, black in a tweed jacket and gold-rimmed reading glasses. He had been silent for the entire flight. He had been silent for the boarding. He had been silent for the entire confrontation. He was not silent anymore. Captain Pritchard. Dr. Carver said, his voice, the kind of voice that had spent 40 years lecturing graduate students and was therefore impossible to ignore. I would advise you to look very closely at the woman you are attempting to remove from this aircraft. Sir, this doesn't concern you. It concerns me a great deal, Captain. I sat on a corporate ethics panel with that woman 3 years ago at the Aspen Forum. I would stake my career, my reputation, and my pension on the fact that you are speaking to Amara Beaumont, chairwoman of Beaumont Holdings. The cabin froze. Captain Pritchard's face did not move. But something behind his eyes did. That can't be. Continental Coast Airlines is a wholly owned subsidiary of Beaumont Holdings, Captain. She owns 74% of this airline, including the aircraft you are standing inside. Sienna Park screamed. Not a loud scream. A small, contained, half-laughed scream of disbelief. The stream hit 11,000 viewers. Bradford Whitmore made a small noise that was not quite a word. Camille Holloway stood up. She did not announce that she was standing up. She just stood. She gathered her bag with shaking hands. She walked 4 rows back to economy. She sat in an empty middle seat. She did not look at anyone. She did not speak. Vivienne Marchetti's tablet, clutched in her hand, suddenly glowed with a notification. She looked down. She read it. The color left her face entirely. The notification said, "Authority revoked. Effective immediately. See HR." She had not yet been told. The system had told her first. The cabin blurred at the edges of Amara's vision. Not from emotion, from memory. At 22, Amara Beaumont had walked into a private banking office on Park Avenue carrying a business plan for a logistics startup. She was wearing the only blazer she owned. It was navy hand-me-down from her aunt, who had worn it for 12 years before passing it along, and the lining had begun to fray at the seams. Her shoes were brown loafers she had polished with a paper towel in the lobby bathroom because the shine had worn down on the subway, and she had not wanted to walk into the meeting looking like a woman who could not afford new shoes. She could not afford new shoes. But she had not wanted them to know that. The receptionist had a French manicure and a pearl necklace not unlike Camille Holloway's. She had looked up. She had looked Amara down. She had said, "The custodial entrance is around the side, dear. You'll want to use that one." Amara had clarified. She had a 2 p.m. appointment with Mr. Halverson about a small business loan. The receptionist had laughed, actually laughed. A small, polite laugh that was the most violent thing anyone had said to Amara that year. "Honey," the receptionist had said, "Mr. Halverson does not take meetings with," and she had let the sentence die where bigotry always lets sentences die. Halfway through the syllable. Just early enough to be deniable. Just late enough to be unmistakable. Amara had waited in that lobby for 90 minutes. Mr. Halverson had walked past her twice and never looked. At 3:35, the receptionist had told her the appointment had been canceled. "He's a busy man, dear. Maybe try a community lender." Amara had walked the 41 blocks back to her studio apartment because she could not afford the subway that day and did not want to admit it. Her loafers had blistered her heel by block 30. She had not cried. She had not cried on the walk. She had not cried when she got home. She had not cried when she sat down at the card table that doubled as her dining table. She had cried once briefly when she opened her business plan and saw the words "Logistics Startup" on the cover sheet and realized how small she had been allowing herself to dream. And then she had stopped crying. And she had taken out a pen, and she had crossed out "Logistics Startup," and she had written "Transportation Conglomerate." The shame of that lobby did not break her. It sharpened her. It built her. 25 years later, she did not just out-earn Mr. Halverson. She bought the bank he worked for. She walked into the same lobby with the same receptionist, still working there. The receptionist had aged 25 years, and Amara had aged 25 years, and the receptionist still did not recognize her. Amara had sat down in the lobby chair she had once waited in for 90 minutes. She had crossed her legs. She had picked up a magazine, and she had looked at the receptionist exactly the way the receptionist had once looked at her. The receptionist had felt it. She did not know why. She had begun to fidget with her pearls. 3 days later, the receptionist had received an email informing her that her position had been eliminated as part of a routine restructuring. That was Amara Beaumont's idea of justice. Quiet, surgical, total. The cabin came back into focus. Captain Pritchard was still standing over her. His face had gone gray. Amara set her magazine down on the seat-back tray. She folded her hands. She smiled, not warmly. "Captain, the cabin door is closing. You're out of time." Vivienne Marchetti, who had been standing in the aisle for what felt like a year, was no longer standing. She had sat down, not in a regulation jump seat, in the empty 2C across from Bradford Whitmore. Her hand was still trembling around her tablet. The notification had not gone away. Authority revoked. Effective immediately. See HR. She read it again. and again. Bradford Whitmore was looking at his shoes. Camille Holloway was 4 rows back, weeping silently into a Hermes scarf. Amara watched all of them, and she remembered for one more second the receptionist with the French manicure who had told her to use the custodial entrance. Then she lifted her phone again. "Naomi," she said quietly, "patch the board chair through speaker." The cabin speakers normally reserved for the captain's announcements did not click on, but Amara's phone set carefully on the seatback tray was loud enough. She had turned the volume all the way up. She had turned it up because she wanted every passenger in first class to hear what was about to happen. A new voice filled the row. Female. Calm. Surgical. "Amara. The board has convened. We are ready to proceed. Carla, identify yourself for the record." Carla Whitfield, Board Chair, Beaumont Holdings. Confirming the conversation is being recorded by Corporate Counsel. Confirming that the events on Continental Coast Flight 812 have been reviewed in real time via the live stream currently being broadcast by passenger Sienna Park, as well as the operational logs from the aircraft. The board has voted unanimously. I am awaiting your authorization to execute. Hold for 30 seconds, Carla. Holding. Amara turned to Captain Pritchard. Her voice was quieter now, almost gentle. "Captain, I am going to give you one chance, right now, to tell me on a recorded line why you ordered me removed from this aircraft without ever once asking Ms. Marchetti to justify her claim that my pass was flagged. I am giving you this chance because I believe in fair process, even for people who do not believe in it for me." Pritchard's mouth opened. It closed. It opened again. "Ma'am, I was relying on the judgment of my lead attendant. Did you ask her any questions?" There wasn't time." "Did you ask me any questions, Captain, did you ask me a single question about my version of events before you ordered me off this aircraft?" The cabin held its breath. "No, ma'am." "Why not?" He did not answer. "I'll wait, Captain. The board is on the line. They have time. I don't have a good answer for that." "That's the most honest thing you've said in 12 minutes. Sienna's stream hit 23,000 viewers. The number kept climbing. Carla Amara said into the phone, "Proceed." Confirmed. Effective immediately. Captain Donald Pritchard is terminated for cause. Grounds gross misconduct, abuse of operational authority, and failure to follow standard passenger verification procedures. Lead attendant, Vivian Marchetti, is terminated for cause. Grounds passenger profiling harassment and falsification of operational status reports. Junior attendant Brett Donovan is placed on administrative review pending mandatory training. Flight supervisor Maria Velasquez is placed on administrative suspension pending investigation. Pritchard's badge buzzed once on his uniform, a small red light. He looked down at it. He looked back up. "Ma'am, you can't." "Carla, please confirm operational authority status for Captain Pritchard." "Operational authority revoked. Captain Pritchard is no longer permitted to command this aircraft. First officer is being notified now." Pritchard's jaw went slack. Vivian in the empty 2C made a small sound. Not a word. Just a sound. Naomi Amara said. "Status of FAA notification." Naomi's voice came through cool as glass. "FAA Office of Civil Rights has been formally notified. They are sending a regional team to meet the aircraft when it returns to the gate. They will conduct interviews on site. Status of replacement crew. Backup crew has been called in. Estimated arrival 22 minutes. Status of grounding order. Aircraft is officially grounded pending full crew replacement and FAA review. Passengers will be reaccommodated." Pritchard stared at his hands. Vivian stared at her tablet. The cabin was so silent that Sienna's whispered narration sounded like a megaphone. It was at this exact moment, when the cabin had gone still, when the captain had gone gray, when Vivian had gone small, that the galley curtain moved. Jasmine Holloway stepped into the aisle. 24 years old, junior flight attendant, second year on the job, the only black crew member on Flight 812. She had been watching the entire incident from behind the curtain. Her hands were shaking. Her badge was clipped slightly crooked because she had been clutching it without realizing. She walked slowly to row 2. She did not look at Vivian. She did not look at Pritchard. She looked at Amara. Ms. Beaumont. Amara turned. Yes. I scanned your pass when you boarded. I scanned it correctly. The pass is valid. The seat is correct. I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. Vivian looked up sharply. Jasmine, do not Ms. Marchetti, with respect you no longer have the authority to tell me what to do. The cabin gasped. A small, shocked, delighted gasp. Sienna's stream caught it perfectly. Jasmine, Pritchard said. His voice was not commanding anymore. It was pleading. Please, don't. Captain, I'm not testifying against anyone right now. I'm just telling Ms. Beaumont what I should have said 12 minutes ago. I scanned her pass. It was clean. I watched Ms. Marchetti walk past her twice during boarding. I heard Ms. Marchetti tell Brett that she didn't like the look of the woman in 2A. I didn't say anything at the time. I should have. I'm saying it now. Brett Donovan turned a deep, painful red. Amara watched Jasmine. Her face softened a little for the first time that morning. What's your name, sweetheart Jasmine, ma'am? Jasmine Holloway. How old are you, Jasmine, 24? How long have you been with Continental Coast? 2 years next month. Why did you step forward just now? Jasmine's voice trembled, but held. Because my mother told me when I took this job that the only thing she wanted me to bring home every night was my conscience. And I almost didn't tonight. The cabin made a sound that was not quite a sob and not quite an exhale. Sienna's stream caught it. Sienna was crying. Sienna did not know she was crying until the screen of her phone went blurry. Brett Donovan, watching Jasmine's spine straighten, finally found his own. He stepped forward. He stood next to her. He did not say anything. He just stood there. It was not redemption. It was not enough, but it was something. Amara saw it. She filed it away. She would deal with Brett Donovan later. For now, she had a young woman in front of her who had walked out from behind a curtain, knowing it might end her career. Jasmine. Yes, ma'am. Effective immediately, you are promoted to senior cabin lead. You will report directly to a new role I am creating this afternoon, Vice President of In-Flight Culture. The role will be filled by a senior leader who will be selected over the next 30 days. You will be on the interview panel. Ma'am, I'm only 24. You are 24 years old, Jasmine. You stepped out from behind that curtain knowing exactly what it might cost you. That kind of conscience is not something an interview can find. That is something a person either has or does not have. You have it. Jasmine's hand went to her mouth. Brett Donovan beside her took one step back, quietly, to give her the moment. Sienna's stream hit 47,000 viewers. The hashtag FlightSighted, Justice born 10 minutes ago, was now trending in the United States and the United Kingdom. Theo Castellanos was typing so fast his fingers were cramping. Captain Pritchard sat down on the empty seat across from Vivian. He did not look at her. He looked at his shoes. His shoulders were small now. His face was old. He understood finally that his career was over. He did not yet understand the rest. The rest was still coming. If this kind of bias has ever happened to you or to someone you love, drop a heart emoji in the comments right now. Let Jasmine know she is not standing alone, and keep watching. Because what Amara does in the next 6 minutes is the reason Continental Coast Airlines will never operate the same way again. The cabin had shifted. Anyone could feel it. Feel Camille Holloway. 4 rows back in economy was still weeping into her scarf. Bradford Whitmore had folded his newspaper into a small, useless square in his lap. Vivian Marchetti, was no longer Vivienne Marchetti, late attendant queen of first-class mistress of the cabin, but a 38-year-old woman in a uniform that no longer belonged to her, holding a tablet that no longer recognized her, sitting in a seat she had no right to. Pritchard was still staring at his shoes. Maria Velasquez, who had been silent through the worst of it, was crying quietly in the galley. She would tell her husband that night that she had failed Amara. She would tell her husband that she had known something was wrong and had not spoken. She would not sleep for 3 days. Amara watched all of them. She did not gloat. She did not smile. Her face was the same face it had been when she boarded. Composed, steady, awake. She lifted her phone again. Naomi. Yes, Amara. Status of Vivian's husband. A pause. Mr. Marchetti is a junior partner at Halverson & Steele. The firm Beaumont Holdings acquired a 19% stake in last week. Do you want to do anything with that information? No. I want her to know I know. Understood. Amara turned to Vivian. Vivian's eyes were red. Her mascara had begun to smear. Ms. Marchetti? Yes. It was a whisper. Your husband, Stephen Marchetti, is a junior partner at Halverson & Steele. Beaumont Holdings acquired a 19% stake in his firm last Tuesday. I sit on the audit committee that reviews his quarterly performance. I want you to tell him when you go home tonight that I said hello. Tell him I have been very interested in the culture at Halverson & Steele lately. Tell him I will be paying particular attention to the conduct of its junior partners over the next year. Will you tell him that? Vivian nodded. She did not speak. Say it out loud, Vivian. Say it so the cabin knows you understood me. Vivian's voice cracked. I'll tell him. Thank you. Amara turned next to Bradford Whitmore. He flinched. He had been waiting his turn. Mr. Whitmore. Miss Beaumont. I want you to know I deeply, deeply regret. Save it. Ma'am. I said save it. You are permanently banned from every airline in the Beaumont portfolio. That includes Continental Coast Pacific Skyways and the 3 regional carriers we are acquiring next quarter. The system will recognize your name and your passport number. Do not test it. Do not ask your assistant to book a ticket for you under a corporate account. We will know. We will always know. The credit facility your firm holds with our subsidiary is up for review next quarter. You will not be present at that review. You will not be informed of the outcome. You will simply find out the way you found out today that the seat you assumed was yours was never yours to assume. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Good. Now turn around. Face the window. I do not want to look at you for the rest of this flight. Bradford Whitmore turned around. He faced the window. He did not look back. Amara did not raise her voice. Not once. Her voice did not need to be raised. Every passenger in first class had stopped breathing 30 seconds ago. She turned to Camille Holloway 4 rows back. She did not need to project. The cabin carried her voice for her. Mrs. Holloway. Camille looked up. Her face was a wreck. You laughed when Mr. Whitmore called me a passenger who hadn't earned her seat. You raised a glass. You said, and I quote because Ms. Park's stream captured it, some people just have no concept of where they belong. You will be banned from this airline the same as Mr. Whitmore. Your apology when you write it, and you will write one because your foundation board is going to require it of you, will not be accepted by me. It will be filed. It will be archived. Your foundation chair will be receiving a call from my office tomorrow. I sit on 3 of the same boards she does. I'd like you to think about that for the rest of this flight. Camille made a sound, a small, wet animal sound. She covered her face with her scarf. Amara turned back to face forward. Captain Pritchard had not moved. He was still looking at his shoes. Captain Pritchard. He did not look up. Captain. Look at me. He looked up. His eyes were wet. You have flown for this airline for 34 years. In those 34 years, you have logged almost no complaints. You have a clean disciplinary record. You are widely respected by your peers. I want you to understand that none of that mattered when you decided in under 90 seconds that the black woman in 2A could be removed from your aircraft without a single question being asked, ma'am. I am not asking for an apology, Captain. I am telling you what happened. Your record was clean because no one ever asked you to be tested. Today you were tested. You failed in front of a cabin full of witnesses, in front of a live stream that has now been seen by over 40,000 people, and in front of an FAA team that will be meeting this aircraft when it returns to the gate. Your termination is effective. Your pilot's license is being reviewed by the FAA as we speak. You will not fly again. Pritchard's hand came up to cover his face. He did not sob. He did not make a sound. His shoulders shook once. Then they were still. The cabin watched. Sienna Park, behind her phone, said softly, "Y'all, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what I'm watching anymore." Theo Castellanos, 3 rows back, had stopped typing. He was just listening. Amara lifted her phone one more time. "Naomi, patch in legal. The FAA team will need a full incident report from our side before they board. Have it ready in 90 minutes. Already in progress. Status of replacement crew, 12 minutes out. Aircraft cleaning standby crew has been pre-cleared. They will board after the original crew has deplaned, including Maria." A pause. "Maria Velasquez is on administrative suspension, pending investigation." Amara was quiet for a moment. "Naomi, tell Carla to expedite Maria's review. She's been through enough already." "Understood." Amara ended the call. The cabin sat in the kind of silence that does not happen on commercial aircraft. The kind of silence that happens in courtrooms when a verdict is read. Then, from the rear of the cabin, someone began to clap. It was Sienna Park. She did not stop. She kept clapping. Slow, steady, deliberate. After a moment, Theo Castellanos joined her. After another moment, Dr. Carver in row 5. After another moment, an older woman in row 8 who had not said a word the entire flight. The clapping spread. It was not a roar. It was not a celebration. It was the sound of 43 people who had just watched something they would talk about for the rest of their lives telling Amara Beaumont that they had seen her. Amara did not stand. She did not bow. She did not smile. She picked up her magazine. She found her place. She turned the page. The clapping faded the way clapping fades gently, awkwardly, with a few stragglers who clapped longer than the rest because they did not know how to stop. The cabin returned to silence. But it was a different silence now. The silence had a shape. The silence had agreed on something. Pritchard, Vivian, Brett, and Maria had all been told to remain in the forward galley while the replacement crew arrived. Pritchard sat with his hands on his knees, staring at nothing. Vivian was no longer crying, but had stopped wiping her face, and the streaks had hardened into something almost theatrical. Brett Donovan stood as far from Vivian as the small galley would allow. Maria Velasquez wept quietly into a cocktail napkin. The cabin door had not yet reopened. The aircraft remained at the gate. The replacement crew was still 12 minutes out. 12 minutes is a long time when no one is allowed to leave. Amara sat in 2A. She turned a page in her magazine. She did not look at the galley. She did not look at the row behind her where Vivian had collapsed into 2C. She did not look at Bradford Whitmore, who was still facing the window. She looked at Jasmine. Jasmine had not moved from the spot in the aisle where she had stepped forward. Brett beside her had not moved either. Jasmine's badge was still clipped slightly crooked. Her hands were still trembling just a little. "Jasmine." "Yes, ma'am. Sit down for a minute." "Where, ma'am?" "Here." Amara gestured at the aisle seat in row 2, the seat next to her own, the seat that until 11 minutes ago had been worth more money per hour than most flight attendants made in a week. Jasmine hesitated. She looked at Brett. Brett, who had spent the last 10 minutes finding his spine, gave her a small, tight nod. She sat down next to Amara. She had never sat in a first-class seat before. She did not know what to do with her arms. "Jasmine, look at me." Jasmine looked. "What are you thinking right now?" "I'm thinking, ma'am. I'm thinking that I almost didn't say anything. I almost stayed behind that curtain. I almost let it happen." "But you didn't." "I almost did." "That's a different thing, Jasmine. That's a very different thing. You are not going to spend the rest of today or the rest of this year telling yourself the story of what you almost did. You are going to tell yourself the story of what you actually did. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am." "Good." Amara reached into her tote. She took out a small leather notebook and a fountain pen. She wrote something on a fresh page. She tore the page out. She handed it to Jasmine. "This is my private cell number. Do not give it to anyone. Do not write it down anywhere else. If you ever for any reason feel that someone in this company is making your life harder because of what happened today, you will call me. Not HR, not your supervisor, not a hotline. Me. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." Repeat it back. "If anyone makes my life harder because of today, I call you. Not HR, not my supervisor, you." "Good." Jasmine folded the paper. Her hand was still trembling. She put the paper in the inner pocket of her uniform jacket. She buttoned the pocket. She kept her hand on the button for a second longer than necessary. In row 5, Dr. Reginald Carver finally rose. He moved to the aisle. He approached row 2 slowly with the deliberate care of a man whose knees had stopped cooperating 2 decades ago. "Miss Beaumont." Amara turned. "Dr. Carver, I want to apologize." "For what?" "For waiting as long as I did. I knew who you were the moment you boarded. I should have spoken sooner. You spoke when it mattered most. I'm an old man, ma'am. I have spent a long time in academia learning when to speak and when to stay quiet. Today reminded me that I have been quiet too often." Amara extended her hand. "Dr. Carver, the Aspen Forum was 3 years ago. You spoke about something important then. You spoke about something more important today. That is a long career you have lived. Don't apologize for any of it." He shook her hand. His grip was steadier than his voice. "Ms. Beaumont, may I sit somewhere closer when the new crew boards? I'd like to be near you. Just in case. Take 2D Dr. Carver. It's been vacated." He smiled. He took 2D. Sienna Park was still streaming. The viewership had crossed 70,000. News outlets were now formally asking her permission to air clips. CNN had reached out. The BBC had reached out. A producer from a morning show had texted her 3 times in 2 minutes. She was not answering any of them. She was still on the live stream. She had decided somewhere around minute 40 that she was going to stay on the live stream until Amara Beaumont stood up and walked off this aircraft. Whatever happened next was the world's problem. Sienna was just going to keep the camera steady. Theo Castellanos had begun publishing in real time. His outlet ran a banner across its homepage. Live updates. Continental Coast flight grounded after racial profiling incident. Owner of airline was the passenger. Within an hour, the banner would be the most viewed page on the internet. Vivian Marchetti in 2C finally spoke. Her voice was small and shredded. "Ms. Beaumont." Amara did not turn. "Ms. Beaumont, please. May I say something?" "You may say something, Vivian. But understand that nothing you say will change what is going to happen to you. I am letting you speak because the cabin is watching, and because I want them to hear what you say, and because I think you need to hear yourself say it. Go ahead." Vivian's mouth opened. It closed. It opened. I was wrong. Specific. I was wrong about you. More specific. I assumed when you boarded that you didn't, that you weren't, that I wasn't what Vivian, that you weren't supposed to be in first class. Why did you assume that Vivian's face crumpled? Yes. You do, Vivian. You know exactly why. Say it. The cabin was silent. Sienna's stream was silent. Even Theo had stopped typing. Because you're black, Vivian whispered. The word fell into the cabin like a stone into deep water. Louder, Vivian. Because you're black. Thank you. Amara did not say it cruelly. She did not say it triumphantly. She said it the way a teacher says it when a student has finally arrived at the answer that should have been obvious from the first day. Vivian, the reason I made you say it out loud is not for me. I have lived my entire life knowing why people like you assume what you assume. I do not need you to say it. The reason I made you say it out loud is because every passenger in this cabin is going to remember this flight for the rest of their lives, and they are going to remember that there is a real word for what you did. It is not misunderstanding. It is not mistake. It is not miscommunication. It is the word you just said. I want them to remember that the word is the word. Not the soft version, not the polite version, the word. Vivian nodded. She could not speak. You are still terminated. Saying it does not undo what you did, but it does mean that for the rest of your life when you tell this story, and you will tell it, Vivian, because stories like this do not stay locked inside the people who live them, you will tell it correctly. You will not say there was a misunderstanding. You will say I was wrong about her because she was black. Will you do that, Vivian? Yes, ma'am. Good. Captain Pritchard in the galley was openly crying now. Not loud, not theatrical, just steady, small tears that were not asking for sympathy. He was a man whose career had ended in front of him, and he had finally accepted that he had ended it himself. Maria Velasquez had stopped weeping. She was sitting on a jump seat with her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes were on Amara. There was something in those eyes that was not asking for forgiveness. There was something that was simply present. Watching. Learning. Amara lifted her phone. Naomi. Yes, Amara. Maria Velasquez. Reverse the suspension. Place her on a 30-day cultural review track. If she clears it, and I think she will promote her to Director of Crew Standards at the Atlanta hub. She has 30 years of seeing what we have not been seeing. I want her seeing it for us with authority. Confirmed. Maria in the galley heard the word Atlanta. She heard the word director. She closed her eyes. She did not cry. She had cried enough today. And Naomi? Yes. The aircraft is ready to be deplaned. Bring the gate jet bridge back. Let the original crew off first. Then the bystanders in 3C and economy row 8. Then the rest of the cabin. I'll deplane last. Understood. Amara ended the call. The cabin door began to open. The captain of the replacement crew was already on the jet bridge. A woman mid-40s, 2 decades of clean flying. Behind her, the new lead attendant, a man with kind eyes and a calm voice. Behind him, the FAA team. Pritchard rose first. He did not look at anyone. He walked slowly off the aircraft. The FAA team escorted him. He was not in handcuffs. The cabin had wanted handcuffs. The cabin did not get handcuffs. The cabin got something quieter, which was worse, the sight of a 61-year-old man walking hat in hand off the aircraft he had commanded for 34 years, knowing he would never command another. Vivian followed. Her tablet was in her hand. The notification was still glowing on it. She had not deleted it. She did not know how. Brett Donovan walked behind her. He paused at row 2. He looked at Jasmine. He nodded. He kept walking. Maria Velasquez was the last of the original crew to leave. As she passed row 2, she stopped. She did not speak. She put her hand briefly on the back of Amara's seat. Just for a moment. Just a touch. Then she walked on. Amara watched her go. Amara did not move. The cabin finally exhaled. Bradford Whitmore had been sitting facing the window for 22 minutes by the time the FAA team boarded. He had not turned around. He had not moved. He had counted the rivets on the fuselage, not moved. He had counted the rivets on the wing 17 times. He had counted the clouds. He had counted the hairs on the back of his own hand. Now a voice behind him said, "Mr. Whitmore." He turned. A young woman in a dark suit stood in the aisle. Her badge said Federal Aviation Administration Office of Civil Rights. "Yes, we'd like to speak with you off the aircraft. You're not under arrest. We are conducting witness interviews related to the events of this flight. We will need approximately 1 hour of your time. Am I free to refuse?" The agent's expression did not change. "You are. The FAA will then determine its next steps based on your refusal." "I'll come." "Thank you. Please gather your belongings." He gathered his belongings. He stood. He walked very slowly down the aisle. As he passed row 2, he tried to make eye contact with Amara. Amara did not look up from her magazine. He kept walking. Camille Holloway followed. She was not crying anymore. She had moved past crying into a strange, dry shock. She did not look at anyone. She walked off the aircraft like a woman who had aged 10 years and 50 minutes. Her husband followed. He had not spoken since he had told her to stop talking. The replacement crew came on. The new captain, Captain Yvonne Reyes, walked directly to row 2. She was Hispanic in her mid-40s, calm as a still lake. "Ms. Beaumont, I'm Captain Reyes. I'll be commanding the aircraft to San Francisco today. May I just say, and I will not bring this up again, that I'm sorry it took the events of this morning to result in my being assigned to this flight." Captain Reyes: "Yes. What is your record like? 22 years. No complaints, 2 commendations. Are you ready to fly this aircraft?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then let's fly it." Captain Reyes smiled small professional real. She turned and walked toward the cockpit. The new lead attendant approached. His name was Caleb Suarez. He was perhaps 35, soft-spoken, with the kind of attentiveness that does not announce itself. "Ms. Beaumont, may I get you anything before we resume boarding?" "Coffee, black, and a glass of water. Right away." He brought the coffee. He brought the water. He did not hover. He did not ask twice. He did not call her ma'am again. He had read the room. Jasmine, still in 2B, turned to Amara. "Ma'am, should I I stay in the seat, Jasmine. You're going to San Francisco today. Caleb will brief you on what your new role requires. You can begin the work immediately. On this flight, on this flight." Jasmine nodded slowly. She did not yet understand what had happened to her life in the last 40 minutes. She would understand later. She would understand for the rest of her life. The remaining passengers boarded. Some of them recognized Amara. Most of them did not. The ones who recognized her looked at her, once looked away, and took their seats with the careful courtesy of people who knew they were in the presence of a story. Sienna Park was reseated to first-class seat 1A by Caleb's quiet doing, and she did not protest. She had stopped streaming the moment Amara's coffee arrived. The world could wait. She was 40,000 feet from her contracts professor and 10,000 miles from where she had been when she boarded. She closed her eyes for a moment. She tried to memorize what the inside of seat 1A felt like. Theo Castellanos was reseated to row 3. He did not protest either. His outlet had broken the story. The story was now everywhere. He was not going to file another piece tonight. He was going to land in San Francisco, get a hotel room, lie on the bed, and stare at the ceiling. Some stories did that to journalists. He had been a journalist for 10 years. He had never had one do this to him. The aircraft door closed. Captain Reyes's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Yvonne Reyes. I want to thank each of you for your patience this morning. I know this has been an extraordinarily difficult flight to begin. I will not address what happened in detail. That is not my place, but I will say this. You are flying today with a crew that takes the responsibility of caring for every passenger on this aircraft very seriously. Every passenger. We are 11 minutes from pushback. Please make yourselves comfortable. We'll see you in San Francisco." The cabin lights dimmed for taxi. Amara closed her magazine. She did not turn to the window. She closed her eyes. For the first time since she had boarded, she let herself feel tired. She was 47 years old. She had been Amara Beaumont for 47 years. She had been told to use the custodial entrance at 22. She had been told the appointment was canceled at 22. She had walked 41 blocks home at 22. She had bought the bank that had refused her loan at 38. She had bought Continental Coast at 43. She had boarded Flight 812 at 47. She had been told she was in the wrong cabin at 47. 25 years between the lobby and the cabin. 25 years between the receptionist with the French manicure and the flight attendant with the blood-red nails. 25 years. It had taken 25 years. It would not take that long for someone else. That was what today was for. The aircraft pushed back from the gate. San Francisco was 5 hours away. She slept for 2 of them. When she woke, Caleb Suarez brought her another coffee without asking. Jasmine, still in 2B, was reading from a leather binder Caleb had given her. The binder said, "Senior Cabin Lead Continental Coast Airlines." Jasmine had been asking Caleb questions for an hour. Caleb had been answering them. Caleb had been smiling. Amara watched them for a moment. She thought about her mother. Her mother was 83. Her mother was at home in a brownstone Amara had bought her in Brooklyn 15 years ago. Her mother had wept when she walked into the brownstone for the first time and had said, "Baby, this is too much. This is too much. This is too much." And Amara had said, "Mama, it's not too much. It's exactly enough. Let me give you exactly enough." Her mother had once cleaned hotel rooms in Manhattan for $32 a night. Her mother had once raised 4 children in a 1-bedroom in Crown Heights. Her mother had once told her when she was 10, "Baby, the world is going to tell you a lot of stories about who you are. You don't have to listen to any of them. You write your own." Amara wrote her own. She picked up her phone. She dialed her mother. "Baby, why you calling me from a plane? I just wanted to hear your voice, Mama." "Something happened." "Yes, Mama, something happened." "You all right?" "Yes, Mama, I'm all right." "You sure?" "I'm sure." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "Baby, I saw something on the news this morning. Said something happened on a Continental Coast flight. Said the woman owned the airline. That you..." "That me, Mama." Her mother laughed. A long, slow, pleased laugh. The laugh of a woman who had cleaned hotel rooms for $32 a night and had raised a daughter who had bought the airline that had told her she was in the wrong cabin. "Baby, you all right?" "I'm all right, Mama. You give 'em hell, I gave 'em a little, Mama. You give 'em a little more for me, baby." "I will, Mama. You come home Sunday, I'll make ribs. I'll come home Sunday. Love you, baby. Love you, Mama." Amara ended the call. She did not cry. She had not cried at 22, and she had not cried at 47, and she was not going to start now. But she sat for a moment with her hand on her phone, and she let herself smile. Just a small one. Just for her mother. Just because her mother had laughed. The aircraft cruised at 38,000 feet. Below it, the country unrolled in patches of brown and green. Somewhere down there, a woman with a French manicure was waking up. Somewhere down there, a man named Halverson was opening his morning newspaper. Somewhere down there, a 38-year-old woman named Vivian Marchetti was stepping off a jet bridge into a world that no longer recognized her. Amara closed her eyes again. She thought about Jasmine. She thought about Maria. She thought about a young flight attendant who had stepped out from behind a curtain at 24 years old, knowing what it might cost her, and had spoken anyway. She thought about the ones who would come after. The aircraft began its descent into San Francisco. The story that had begun with one flight in one cabin at one moment was already much bigger than one flight, one cabin, one moment. It was already, by the time the wheels touched down, the kind of story that changes things. It was already changing things. It was just getting started. 3 weeks passed. Continental Coast Airlines announced what it called the 812 Initiative, named simply and without flourish for the flight number. The initiative committed the airline to an independent civil rights audit at every one of its 41 hub airports. It established a passenger advocacy office that reported directly to the chairwoman. It mandated bias training for every employee from baggage handlers to the board. It created a permanent role vice president of in-flight culture and announced that the role would be filled within 30 days. Jasmine Holloway was named to the interview panel. The press coverage of her appointment was unprecedented for a flight attendant. She declined nearly every interview request. She accepted only one. She accepted the one from Theo Castellanos. They sat in a small Brooklyn coffee shop. Jasmine wore her uniform because she was on call that afternoon. Theo wore the same rumpled jacket he had worn on the flight. Theo asked her 3 questions. Jasmine answered all 3. "What did you feel when you stepped out from behind that curtain?" "Scared. I was scared. I almost didn't do it. I want people to know that. I didn't step out because I was brave. I stepped out because I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Those are different things." "What did Ms. Beaumont say to you afterward?" "She told me to stop telling myself the story of what I almost did. She told me to start telling myself the story of what I actually did. I think about that sentence every day. What do you want people to take from what happened on Flight 812, that I didn't save anyone that day? Ms. Beaumont was already saving herself. I just decided I didn't want to be on the wrong side of it. I want people to know you don't have to be the hero of the story, you just have to refuse to be the villain." The interview ran in 86 countries. Jasmine kept the leather notebook page Amara had given her. She did not call the number. She had not needed to. Sienna Park's law school applications, already strong, were now flooded with mentor offers. She launched a nonprofit with seed funding from Beaumont Holdings. She called it Witness Rise. The mission was simple: teach young people how to document discrimination safely and legally. The first board member she recruited was a retired civil rights attorney from Atlanta. The second was Theo Castellanos. Theo had stopped sleeping. He had also started writing his first book. The working title was Flight 812. His agent told him he should change it. He kept it. Bradford Whitmore's hedge fund lost 2 major institutional clients within 30 days. His name disappeared from Wall Street panels. His firm forced him into early retirement on a Monday morning in October. He did not contest it. He flew a budget airline to a vacation home he could no longer comfortably afford. He did not turn around when the gate agent called standby over the intercom. Camille Holloway was uninvited from 3 foundation boards. She wrote an apology that was widely mocked. She wrote a second one that was worse. She stopped writing apologies. She moved with her husband to a smaller house in Connecticut. She stopped attending charity galas. She was in the most precise sense gone. Captain Donald Pritchard's pilot license was revoked by the FAA. He never flew again. He moved to a small house outside Tallahassee. He bought a fishing boat. His grandchildren visited him in the summer. He did not speak about Flight 812. His grandchildren did not ask. Vivienne Marchetti's husband filed for divorce within 8 weeks. The papers cited irreconcilable differences. The actual cause was the email her husband had received from his managing partner, Stephen. "We are going to need to have a difficult conversation about your wife." Stephen Marchetti had read the email twice. He had filed the papers the next morning. Vivian moved to Phoenix. She got a job at a regional charter service. She lasted 4 months. The owner of the charter service was an old friend of someone who knew someone who had been on Flight 812. She was let go without explanation. She moved again. The pattern would not stop. She was 38 years old, and she would spend the rest of her working life discovering in small, painful ways that the world had a longer memory than she had given it credit for. Brett Donovan completed his bias retraining. He sent a handwritten letter to Beaumont Holdings. The letter was 3 pages long. It was addressed to Ms. Beaumont, who I owe an explanation I will spend the rest of my career earning. He wrote that he had applied to become a flight purser, specifically to mentor newer crew on what he had failed to do. He wrote that he thought about Jasmine every day. He wrote that he was sorry, but that he understood sorry was not enough, and that he was trying to be the kind of man who did not need to write sorry letters in the first place. Amara wrote back. 2 sentences. I read your letter. Welcome to the work. Brett Donovan framed the letter. He hung it above his desk. He has not taken it down. Maria Velasquez completed her 30-day cultural review track. She passed it without difficulty. She accepted the position of Director of Crew Standards at the Atlanta hub. She moved her family from Houston. She sent her son to a magnet school. She has, in the 18 months since, restructured the entire training pipeline for cabin crew across the southern region. The complaint rate at the Atlanta hub is down 61%. She has been quoted in the Wall Street Journal once. She has refused all other interviews. Continental Coast Airlines 2 quarters after Flight 8. 1-2 was named the most improved airline in North America by an independent travel association. The stock price had recovered fully and was up 19% year over year. These were the public consequences. The hidden one came in the mail. It came 11 weeks after Flight 812. It came in a thick brown envelope addressed by hand with a return address in Sarasota, Florida. Naomi Brooks opened it first. It was her job to open everything before it reached Amara. She read 2 pages. She walked without knocking into Amara's office. Amara, you need to read this. Amara looked up. Naomi handed her the envelope. The letter inside was 4 pages long. It was written in careful blue ink on lined paper that had been ruled with a ruler. The handwriting was the handwriting of a woman who had been taught penmanship in 1962. Ms. Beaumont. My name is Margaret Whitlock. I am 71 years old. I flew for Continental Coast Airlines for 38 years before I was quietly let go in 2019. I was told my position had been eliminated. It had not been eliminated. I was told I would be eligible for a small pension. I was eligible for a smaller one than I had been promised. I did not contest any of it. I had been tired for a long time. I watched the footage of Flight 812 on the news. I watched it twice. The first time I watched it, I cried, which surprised me because I had not cried in some years. The second time I watched it, I went into my closet and pulled down a box I have kept since 1994. Inside that box are 17 complaint forms. Some of them are mine. Some of them are from passengers who asked me to file on their behalf when they were too tired or too afraid to file themselves. I was the kind of flight attendant whom passengers asked. I was a younger woman then. 3 of those complaints are about Captain Donald Pritchard. They go back 22 years. 2 of them are about Vivian Marchetti's mother, Eleanor Marchetti, who flew for Continental Coast in the 1990s. Eleanor was the same as her daughter. There is a name for what runs in some families. Every one of those complaints was buried by a regional director named Charles Pendergrast. He retired in 2020 with a full pension and a plaque on the wall of the Atlanta hub. The plaque is still there. I have driven past it. I tried 3 separate times to bring these complaints forward. The first time I was reassigned to Red Eyes for 2 years. The second time I was told my hours would be reduced. The third time I was told that if I continued to make trouble, my pension would be reviewed. I stopped after the 3rd time. I am ashamed of that. I have been ashamed of it for 10 years. I am too old to be ashamed of it any longer. I kept the copies. I always kept copies. I am a careful woman. They are yours if you want them. I am not asking for anything. I am not asking for my old position back. I am not asking for money. I am not asking for an apology from Continental Coast. I lived my life. I will live what is left of it. I am asking only that the people in those 17 complaints be heard finally by someone who will listen. I think you will listen. Sincerely, Margaret Whitlock. Amara read the letter once. She read it again. She set it down. She looked out the window of her office. Manhattan was gray that afternoon. The clouds were low. The city looked the way the city always looked when it was about to rain. Naomi. Yes. Find Charles Pendergrast. I want to know where he lives. I want to know what board memberships he holds. I want to know what charity galas he is invited to. I want to know what his children do for a living. Understood. Find every employee who left Continental Coast Airlines under a non-disclosure agreement in the last 25 years. I want every name. I want every settlement. I want every complaint they ever filed before they were forced to stop filing. Understood. And Naomi. Yes. Send a car to Sarasota tomorrow. I want to see Margaret Whitlock by Friday. Bring her to New York. First class. Comp her hotel. Let her know I'm not asking her to do anything except let me thank her in person. Understood. Within 60 days, 47 cases were reopened. 23 former employees of Continental Coast were offered reinstatement and back pay. Charles Pendergrast was publicly named in a federal investigation. He resigned from 3 boards in a single week. His pension was placed under review. He was last seen having lunch alone at a country club in Boca Raton, watching the door waiting for someone he could not name to walk through it. Margaret Whitlock came to New York on a Thursday. Amara met her in the lobby of Beaumont Tower. Margaret had brought the box. The box was old. The cardboard was soft at the corners. Inside the box were 17 complaint forms, each one carefully numbered, each one carefully dated, each one written in the same blue ink. Amara took the box. She did not let go of Margaret's hand for a long moment. Margaret, thank you. Thank me by reading them. I'll read every single one, out loud, to the board. Margaret smiled. She had not smiled in some time. It made her face look younger. That's all I wanted, Miss Beaumont. That's all I ever wanted. 6 months later, Amara sat in seat 2A of a Continental Coast flight from JFK to Chicago. She wore a charcoal cashmere sweater. She wore dark jeans. She wore leather flats. She wore a single black pearl in each ear. The flight attendant who greeted her was a young Hispanic woman named Lucia Reyes. Lucia smiled. She handed Amara a sparkling water without being asked. She said, "Welcome aboard, Ms. Beaumont. We're glad you're flying with us today." Amara smiled back. "I'm just glad I'm flying." Lucia moved on. Amara turned the page of her magazine. The aircraft pushed back from the gate. This time, no one stopped her. This time, no one asked. This time, she just flew. I have to be honest with you for a minute. When I first heard this story, I had to sit with it for a long time. I had to put my phone down and walk around my apartment and think about what I had just watched. Because what Amara Beaumont did on Flight 812 was not revenge. Revenge is loud. Revenge is messy. Revenge is satisfying for about 10 seconds, and then it leaves you emptier than it found you. What Amara did was something else entirely. She refused to move. That was it. That was the whole thing. A grown woman in a charcoal sweater, a magazine on her lap, and a refusal to move. And that refusal, that one small, steady act of staying exactly where she belonged, ended. Careers, rewrote policies, and reopened cases that had been buried for 22 years. I have been thinking about that all week, because it tells me something I needed to be reminded of, and maybe you needed to be reminded of it too. Power doesn't always look like power. Sometimes power looks like a woman turning a page. Sometimes power looks like a 24-year-old flight attendant stepping out from behind a curtain. Sometimes power looks like a 71-year-old retired woman in Sarasota opening a box she has kept for 30 years and putting the box in the mail because she decided she was finally too old to be quiet. Here is what I want you to take from this story. The world is going to test you. Maybe not on a plane. Maybe not in a first-class cabin. Maybe it will be in a meeting where someone interrupts you for the third time. Maybe it will be in a store where the clerk follows you down the aisle. Maybe it will be at a hospital where a doctor talks past you to your husband. Maybe it will be in a school where a teacher tells your child that children like you don't usually do well in advanced classes. And in those moments, the world will tell you that the only way to be heard is to get loud. The world will be lying to you. The loudest people in the room are usually the ones with the least to lose. The most powerful people in the room are the ones who already know who they are and don't need anyone else to confirm it. Amara Beaumont did not raise her voice once. Not once in 47 minutes. And she ended an entire flight crew's careers without ever lifting her hand. That is not a trick. That is not a fairy tale. That is a discipline. And it is a discipline you can learn. It starts with one decision, the same decision Amara made at 22, the same decision Jasmine made at 24, the same decision Margaret made at 71. The decision to stay seated when the world tells you to move. The decision to keep the receipts. The decision to remember exactly who you are even when someone is standing in front of you trying to tell you who you are not. So here is what I want you to do. The next time someone tries to tell you where you belong, whether it is in a job, in a neighborhood, in a relationship, or in a seat on a plane, I want you to remember Amara. I want you to remember Jasmine, who was 24 years old, and stepped out from behind that curtain knowing it could cost her everything. I want you to remember Sienna, who pressed record when most people would have looked away. I want you to remember Margaret, who kept a box in her closet for 30 years because she knew the day would come when someone would finally listen. And I want you to remember that the quietest voice in the room is often the one that changes the room. Stay seated when they tell you to stand up. Stay calm when they want you to crack. Keep the receipts. Tell the truth. And when the moment comes, and it will come, let them write the check. You don't have to cash it for them. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of the quiet ones who change everything. And tell me in the comments, when was the last time you stayed seated when the world told you to move? I am reading every single one. I always do. Until next time, stay kind, stay steady, and never forget your seat was earned, not requested. Take it, keep it. And if anyone asks you to leave it, you know exactly what to say. You say nothing, you just turn the page.